welcome everyone. Thank you very, very much for coming. Originally, we were anticipating as many as 100 people here today. That's a very sizable proportion of all of the staff within the university, and it's an excellent opportunity not only for you to see the facilities here, the results of the 30 million plus investment the university's made in the next generation of learning environments, but also to meet colleagues from across the university. We've got essentially three main aims for this afternoon's session. So before I take you through the detail of what we're going to do, if I could just spend a few minutes spelling out what those aims are. The first aim is to demonstrate to you that we are responding to your ideas and your suggestions and your recommendations. The title of this third Learning and Teaching Away Day is Putting Good Ideas into Practice. And what I hope we'll demonstrate to you is that your good ideas are being put into practice through the learning and teaching strategy. So as we run through my slides and other slides, I hope you'll see that what you've said in previous sessions is actually guiding and influencing how we're developing policy and how we hope you're helping us to develop practice in the classrooms on the various different sites that the university operates on. So number one is demonstrating that we've done what you've asked us to do. Number two is encouraging debate and dialogue and conversation about what we're going to do next. The University of Salford is, through things like Media City, attempting to make a step change in what it does and make a significant contribution, not just to the economy of Greater Manchester and the North West, through supporting the BBC and other organisations to make the most of digital and media technologies as they apply in traditional industries like broadcast, but also as they apply in other industries like health and social care, built environment, energy, business and so forth. What it's also hoping to demonstrate is new ways in which learning and teaching can be done more effectively. So that brings me on to the third point. If the second point is about encouraging all of us to debate what we're going to do next, the third point is the oft said cliche that the media is the message. It weaved through what we're going to do this afternoon, I hope, are lots of ideas of things that people are already doing across the university to make the curriculum more exciting for them as tutors and more engaging for students, but also newer things that we might have learnt from other institutions. During the course of the day, I'm very pleased to say that we've been joined by a number of students sitting neatly in the front row here, particularly from Art and Design School and from MMP. They're going to be helping us through the work that they do, drawing a lot of what we do, videoing and recording a lot of what we do, and photographing a lot of what we do. The results of that we'll use to publicise what's happened today to audiences outside the university, but also to communicate to colleagues and friends across the university what we as a group of 100 people did this afternoon and how that might influence what they do in weeks and months to come. So those are the three aims. Tell you what we've done in the past. You help us plan what we're going to do in the future, and the medium is the message. If I can ask Chris to take us on, he's already done that, to the first slide. The next slide, if we move on, one, is an outline of what I'm going to say to you in the course of the next 15 minutes. So in the course of the next 15 minutes, I want to tell you just a little bit about what's happening in the world outside and how that's going to affect what we do here and on other campuses within the university. Then I want to tell you about Goal 1. You know about it anyway. You will have seen feedback about programme performance and school performance and things like that, but I just want to rehearse what that means for us. I'll tell you a little bit about the learning and teaching strategy and then move quickly into the main focus of today. The main focus of today is the P in Aspire. It's about encouraging us to be pedagogically excellent. It's about taking examples of that pedagogic excellence where they exist across the university and sharing that with other colleagues. We want to move on to some of the work that's been done, particularly in CST and now in other colleges, on looking at NSS profile by programme. And then finally, I'll just touch on the agenda for today. So if Chris can take us on to context. As you'll know, the government decided a little over a year ago that students should make a fuller contribution to the cost of their higher education, and that would be done through them paying universities tuition fees. They would borrow that money from the government. Over the course of the last 6 months, universities have declared what their fees are going to be from 2012 onwards for undergraduates, and more recently they're beginning to declare their postgraduate fees. This graph along the bottom, it gives an indication of what that fee level might be for students on undergraduate programmes. And the dots, the blue dots, are institutions in the northwest. The y-axis on the left is the UCAS points on entry that students are asked to achieve before they come to a university. That used to be the common currency of access to universities. Rather than pay a variable fee, you got variable performances in A-levels and other qualifications. If we plot those things together, what we're beginning to see across the country is a cluster of 3 different types of institution. What we've got here is the 15 institutions in the northwest. There is a cluster of institutions charging a relatively low fee and having relatively low entry points. I haven't named them for fear of embarrassment. Well, not all of them. There's a few of them labelled in the box. There's also a smaller group of institutions where the UCAS points are high. It tended to be research-led strategies, and the fees have typically been charged at a relatively high level. Now, the challenge for the University of Salford is that it is in with a cluster of slightly more specialist institutions that sit somewhere between those 2 places. My personal view is that what we need to do as an institution is come together and plan how we can make sure that we're making steady progress up towards the right-hand top corner. That will ensure that we're able to provide the highest value for the students that pass through the institution, ensure that they gain the maximum from their experience with us. Now, having said that, we also need to be conscious that the things that people will be looking to universities to deliver will probably change slightly over time. I noticed from talking to colleagues at the University of Manchester and colleagues at universities in London that learning and teaching is becoming much, much, much more central to the work of all institutions of whatever level. And so finding the space and the time to plan and develop what people are doing in terms of learning and teaching becomes ever more important. So that's a little bit about context. Let's move on to the next slide. This is the goal 1. Goal 1 is about improving that learning and teaching. In order to make sure that we're making steady progress, we've set ourselves a series of targets over the course of the next 5 years. What we want to do is to position ourselves in the first quartile of UK universities. Now, I'm reasonably confident that within the course of the next 12 months, we will begin to break into at least the top half of league tables. A number of the things that you've done over the course of the last year are beginning to bear significant fruit in terms of retention improvements, student satisfaction improvements, but also some of the investments that we've made in facilities like this and in the hiring of new staff will begin to show through in league tables. What we need to do is to galvanise and build on that momentum, and that's part of what today is about. What we're trying to do through those activities is to enable ourselves to move up the UCAS points on entry, to maintain a strong offer which helps students from a range of backgrounds to achieve in higher education, to improve student satisfaction, particularly with feedback and with the organisation and management of programmes, but also in terms of satisfaction with teaching, improve employability, but also operate within a budget which produces a surplus for reinvestment. So the next slide says something about how we're trying to do that. I won't be testing anyone today, but we did, or you did, a little over 6 months, or was it a year ago, decide that the acronym ASPIRE might be a good way of organising our thoughts in terms of what we're doing with learning and teaching. So ASPIRE stands for Accessible Higher Education, Student-Focused, Pedagogically Excellent, Internationally Orientated, Research-Informed, and Employability and Enterprise-Led. There are a series of videos that we've released today on the web, and that's gone out in an email to all students and to all staff, which provide a further reminder of the flesh on those bones of our strategy. What we've begun to think about in addition is the financial position of the university. So I'm just floating in an extra letter at the bottom, which is to emphasise that not only do we have to be excellent in what we do, but we do need to generate a surplus. Otherwise, we won't be able to continue to do that. So we move on to the next slide. Today, we're focusing on the P in Aspire, pedagogically excellent. When we had our last 2 strategy days, you told me, and the students confirmed, that the things that were important under this heading were clarity in what's expected of staff. We're going to be hearing in a little while from Julie Woozy and colleagues in HR and other parts of the university who've been helping us to establish what that is in practice and what that looks like. You said the second most important thing was high quality and timely feedback. That's been reinforced by the Student Bill of Rights. I'm very pleased to see Caroline and colleagues from Students' Union here today. And it's a central feature of the Student Charter that we are going to be taking forward and rolling out in the course of the next 12 months. You said that you wanted systematic and a slightly simpler system of evaluating student experience on modules and programmes. We've got a working group looking at that at the moment, and we're planning to roll out a better system in September 2012. You said you wanted a greater proportion of staff with postgraduate certificates, and you wanted support for innovative and inclusive approaches to learning and teaching. And at the end of my session in a few minutes, I'm going to hand over to our new head of the Academic Development Unit, Brian Murphy, who's going to talk you through a little bit of what's happening in those areas. You said that information literacy was particularly important to students and staff, and we, through the library, through Julie Berry, Serena Chester, Ros Howard, and Sue Hodges and others, who I think some of whom are here today, we've been building that in at every level to the curriculum, and next year we'll be checking with students that that learning is taking place early on at the beginning of each academic year. So we are, I hope you'll see, making progress. The ticks mean I'm confident that we've done it, and the arrows mean it's in progress, and we're working on things that you'll see the fruits of in the next 9 to 12 months. Chris, if you could take us on. One of the things that I'm particularly heartened by is people demonstrating their initiative and their innovativeness and their desire to improve things for themselves. In the College of Science and Technology, they've been taking the results of the NSS and using it to map progress against programmes for themselves, not just relying on what's done by planning and performance to map us against the key indicators. This is a profile of NSS results by programme, by category. I've made it sufficiently blurry that you can't see exactly what's going on there. But we've done the same thing in the College of Arts and Social Science recently. We thought the highest form of flattery for academics, but not for students, is plagiarism. And so we borrowed the idea shamelessly. We thought that what Gay and her colleagues were doing was excellent. And what we're trying to do here is encourage programme teams and academics to concentrate their efforts on the programmes which are not doing as well. Introduce an element of friendly competition, encourage them to compete, to move on, and to feed some of the good ideas from the highest performing programmes back to those programmes where things have been slightly more challenging, in order to constantly raise our game. So that's a good example of the sorts of bottom-up innovation that are rapidly finding a foothold in the institution.